Welcome to the show. I am your host, Mike Hatch, and man, am I grateful that you chose to spend your time to literally invest the most valuable resource you have, your time, to participate and engage in the content in this podcast. So thank you, and man, you are not going to be disappointed. I'm really excited for today's interview. And I want to thank all of those who have supported the podcast already. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You are making a huge difference, and you're helping us to take care of operational costs for this first year. And I'm really, really grateful. If you would like to help support, become a ministry partner with us here at Redemptive Economics, there's a link in the show notes you can click in order to find out how to support. Also, you can follow a link in the show notes in order to download your own Redemptive Economic Principles PDF. And I created this so that it would be a resource for you and anybody else who is trying to build their business on biblical principles. And it identifies 15 redemptive economic principles that will help you do just that, to build a business not just for kingdom impact in this life, but for lasting eternal significance. Lastly, please reach out to me if you have questions, whether it be about Truth at Work roundtables, which you'll hear about in this interview, or about redemptive economics. Maybe you are someone who's listening who might need to be a guest with me on the show, or you know somebody who is a business leader in the community who needs to be a guest. Please reach out to me and let me know. Also, I am very open to feedback. Would love to hear your feedback about the content from this show. Would love to hear what you think. And what am I missing? What do I need to include that I have not included up to this point? Please reach out to me. This is about having a dialogue, being an open source content, if you will, where I am very dependent on your input about what happens on this show. All right, so we are talking to Matt DeHart today. He is the founder of the Teach from DeHart Academy, which actually started in South Carolina, but you'll hear the story about how he and his wife decided to make the move to Pittsburgh, and specifically Arnold, PA, over near New Kensington. And they bought a building over there, stepping out on faith in a big way and really putting it on the line, if you will, and having real skin in the game. I mean, a true entrepreneur and business leader who is also a teacher and educator and is passionate about that. And I would say actually award-winning teacher and educator, because he has won awards down in South Carolina where he started the content and curriculum that he will share with us today. So I'm really looking forward to you hearing about this and finding out how God is working in really profoundly redemptive ways through Matt at this school in Arnold, Pennsylvania. All right, so here is our interview with Matt DeHart. Hey, Matt, welcome to the Redemptive Economics Podcast, buddy. I'm so grateful to have you.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I look forward to the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so let's start with a little bit of your background. I want to hear about your faith background. I've said this before, some people, as they've grown up in the faith, I know you grew up in a Christian home. I know that part, but you can probably elaborate. But some people, there's like a single moment where God kind of strikes them. Or for others, it's kind of a process. And I, like you, grew up in a Christian home as well. And I would describe it as a process. And I'm curious if you might relate to that and what that looked like for you.
Oh, my word. You said some people, they have the moment where they get, God strikes them. God just keeps striking me because he has to, because I'm hard-headed. So he just keeps on.
That's really good, man.
I am blessed. I come from an educational family. To give you some background, mom, dad, grandfather, all educators, all work in the school systems down in South Carolina, born and raised in the South. In God's country, as I call it.
Yes.
And I was raised in a Christian home. I was blessed enough. Both of my parents were saved young, probably in their late teenage, early adult years. My grandfather was a believer. One of his biggest accomplishments in his life, although he has so many, his biggest accomplishment for himself was that he's read through the Bible twice. He had read through the Bible twice. That was that was in his eulogy when he passed away. And so in that, grew up where I saw faith in action. So I think that's the biggest thing for me, is that when I was raised in a Christian home, I wasn't raised, it was a different type of raising, in that I knew scripture, I knew the Bible. I got saved when I was in middle school, but I got to watch my entire life that faith was acted out through my parents, through the teams that they coached, through the students that they taught. and the absolute energy they poured into other people's children while also pouring into me and my brother Quez as we got older into high school. I got to watch that. So for me, my biggest way to say I was raised in a Christian home is I was raised in a home where your faith needed to take action. And that needed to be through loving others, helping others, encouraging others, and building them into better people. And so I've been blessed. The running joke in our family is that the gym is named after my grandfather, where he taught and coached. The gym is named after my mom, where she was a PE teacher. And then my dad's in Hall of Fames, and so I needed to buy a building to put my name on it so I could be a part of the family, and so God has blessed me in that sense. But yeah, it definitely is a process. My faith has been one that I've been assured of since middle school, but I've been able to find it for myself and what that meant and what that looked like for me. And then for me and my wife, when I got married, what does that look like? We even had conversations this week about how God has put us in a position we're just not in the same position as other people our age. And that is okay, because that's where God's putting us, and he's made us this way for a reason. So I'm blessed.
Wow. And well, we'll have to elaborate on that a little bit, where God has put you in a place where not many people your age are. Well, I'd say, first of all, you guys have a mentality that not many people your age have. Would you consider yourself millennial?
I guess I'm 28. I was born in 95. So it just depends. I mean, I remember MTV having music videos. So if that tells you my, age gap there was actual music videos. It wasn't like Jersey Shore yet. So I remember that.
MTV was still the music. It was still music channel, television. Yeah.
So
that's great. That is a big delineating factor for many people.
I try to tell people, I'm like, listen, MTV was not like just TV shows that dull your mind. It used to actually have just music. And so but no, I mean, maybe, I guess you could say millennial. That I'm around that time frame regardless. I'm probably in an in-between spot.
Okay. Yeah, I've noticed that, obviously, getting to know you over the last year or so, your, I guess, passion for making an impact. You've got such a heart to want to impact others for God's redemptive purposes, of course. But I get the sense that you definitely got that from your parents. And hearing you say that your parents modeled this love for you and love of Christ that was linked with doing or with action, that really makes sense as I look at your life since I've known you.
I appreciate that. No, it's one of those things. It was not just enough in our minds. I mean, obviously prayer is the most powerful tool we have, but it wasn't just enough to say, oh, I'm praying for you, because that's the Southern thing to do, is say, oh, God bless you, or bless your heart, or, oh, we'll be praying for you. It was very much obviously we pray, but if we can do something, we're going to do something. Many times players who didn't have a place to live would come to our house and stay at our house. Or, my grandfather would go buy 2 sets of groceries and take another set to a family that he knew needed groceries. That's just what it was. It was about faith in action. That's what was expected. And it's a really beautiful thing. The older I get, then the more I dive into what God has put me and my wife, in the pathway he's put us, the more I just am so grateful to be able to see that, to look back and go, oh my word, wow, how awesome was that? How cool was that to see the amount of people that call my father, or my mom. I mean, it's one of those things that I have brothers all over the United States and sisters all over the United States because they were under my parents' tutelage. They took it that seriously. So yeah, the idea of passion being behind everything that we do, that was instilled in me from a very young age. It's not just enough to speak it; you got to act it.
I love that. Tell us a little bit about how you met your wife and what that was like.
So we were both in college together. We were in a history of civilization class, and her last name was David. Mine is DeHart. So we ended up sitting next to each other. And as we were sitting there, she just couldn't keep her eyes off me. And no,
I'm sure that's the way she would tell it too, right?
I wish that was the case. No.
Truth at Work executive peer advisory groups are a life and business changing experience. Trust me, I've experienced it myself. It made such an impact on me that I stepped out to become a chapter president myself. At Truth at Work, we're dedicated to helping Christian business leaders who feel isolated and overwhelmed. Our community of like-minded peers are here to help leaders like you live out your faith in the marketplace and build your business on biblical principles. Christian business leaders are transformed through these peer advisory groups that apply biblical truth for living out our faith in all areas of life. If you'd like to learn more about Truth at Work, email me, Mike Hatch, at mhatch@truthatwork.org, or you can email my counterpart, Dave Hartman, at dhartman@truthatwork.org.
No, she noticed a very pretty girl sitting next to me, was like, oh man, I should strike up conversation. I did, definitely thought it went better than she thought it did. She thought I was a little odd. And then over time, we just built a friendship. Started having lunches consistently together, and funny enough, I actually asked her out, and she shot me down. Like, I asked her out after a couple weeks. I was like, hey, I think we should take this a step forward, and she was like, oh, I'm not into you that way. I'm so sorry that you think that. And I was shocked. I was like, no way. Like, what? And then decided, obviously, she's a great friend. She's a good person, so we stayed friends. And then come to find out later, she just was a little nervous, didn't really know what that was going to look like. And so we ended up started dating about 3 months later. And the rest is history. So I tell people all the time when they say, we're going to pray for you or the school you're opening, all of those things. I say, no, just pray for my wife, because she has to deal with me. And she's been dealing with me ever since. So it's going on 8 years since we started dating, and 5 years we've been married. So.
Wow. That's amazing. And talk a little bit about how she complements you, because I do think you two are very well fit for each other. Could you share a little bit about kind of your strengths 100%. And weaknesses versus hers? Because as entrepreneurs and business leaders, like, we have to recognize, I think, the value that our spouses bring to us in this journey, right?
There's no question. I could not do. I was telling her last night, I have these moments of, I call it like gooiness, right? I'm like, ooh, gooey, like, oh, and I just was telling her, like, thank you for everything. Like, I can't do this without you. And what she's able to bring to the table is she's able to ground me, which is difficult. My entire life, I have dealt with a wide range of emotions. That's just who I am. And growing up, I never really was told how to train it to be a benefit to me. So I would feel either really excited, really hyped up, or really, really low. And I never figured out how I almost hated myself for that, because I was like, what's wrong with me? I should be calmer, cooler. I should just settle more. And so once we got married and things really started taking off in the educational realm for me, she became like a grounding force for me to, when I was really excited, to make sure that I understood what was coming ahead, or if I was really down, to bring me back up to, you're doing fine. Like, take a look at this. Look at the big scheme of things. Stop focusing here. So she's able to ground me. And then on the back end, like, she makes sure that I'm taken care of, like physically, eating. That is honestly a piece of entrepreneurial life that people don't think about, that when you're going, you get home and you haven't eaten all day, right? So she makes sure that I eat. She makes sure that I have good food. I have a gluten intolerance, so she makes sure that I have food that is, it works for me and my body. But at the end of the day, she's just like my support. She's my rock. Yeah. She's there for me. She stands behind me. And she gets mama bear when she needs to be. And then she also holds me accountable, which is really the biggest thing. She does not, I tell people all the time, I'm like, if you want someone to just be brutally honest with me, just tell Kaylee to say it, because she will. She has no problem telling me what issues she sees or things that need to be changed or adjusted.
Yeah, I tend, like, just getting to meet her a little bit and spend a little bit of time with you guys, I just I see her as being fiercely devoted to you. Yeah. That's kind of the way I would describe it. And I love it. I love seeing your marriage, your love for one another. It is absolutely a gift, for sure. And it's fun to see how that propels you forward in your own journey,
Well, and in that, Mike, it's really something that we have come to an understanding between the two of us in the last year and a half when we moved up here and made the leap of faith that we'll obviously be talking about. But
Mm-hmm.
with that, our marriage is different in the sense of it's not what you would normally see. The expectation of, come home, dinner's ready, sit and have time. Like that's not us. Some days we do have time to have dinner together. Some days we go walk together, but there's other days where we might see each other in passing 3-4 days out of the week. But then when we get that time, it really is meaningful. And she supports my travel schedule. I support her travel schedule. And so there are times where one of us is on the other side of the country but we still find a way to support each other through that. And, I'm really grateful for it because I am not the normal lifestyle person. And so to have someone who can understand that, support that, is really powerful.
So let's go back. I want to hear about how Teach from DeHart started, because this goes back to Georgia, right?
South Carolina.
South Carolina.
Yes.
I don't want to make
It's
that
okay.
mistake
I
again.
mean, it's okay. You just offended me. It's fine.
Man.
No, it's all good. In South Carolina, a lot of people will say North Carolina, and I just smile and nod. I mean, it's what it is. Like to them, it's like, oh, it's the South. Like, oh, they still believe in the Civil War. Like that's usually the go-to.
Really?
It's like people. That's literally the number one question I will get is, well, two. I'll say this: when I say I'm from South Carolina, I hear, "Oh, are you from Charleston?" And I go, "There are other places in South Carolina besides Charleston." Number two is, do they really still think the Civil War is going on? That has happened multiple times.
Wow. Interesting.
To which I respond with, you don't think it's still going on?
Yeah,
and then they're like, what? So yeah.
Yes.
So South Carolina, that's where it started.
Okay. So talk about what was it? What was the impetus? How was Teach from DeHart birthed?
Yeah. It started in my 5th grade classroom. I actually was giving a history lesson about downtown Greenville and tying it to my grandfather, who actually lived in the middle of downtown Greenville. His dad, who was an immigrant from Greece, came through Ellis Island, had a fruit stand. And there was like a fruit stand that they lived on the top floor of the building in an apartment. And then their dad sold fruits downtown.
Wow.
So I was giving a reference to the location, and I'm like, hey, it's right over next to the Liberty Bridge downtown, and I could see blank faces. I'm like, okay. And mind you, we lived in Travelers Rest, South Carolina, which was about 20 minutes from downtown Greenville. So I'm not talking about, hours drive. We're within 30 minutes. And so I make another reference, hey, this area of downtown Greenville, and there's just, again, blank faces. So I say, how many of you guys have seen downtown Greenville before? And 3 of the 28 raised their hand. And I realized immediately these students who were in a Title I environment, they did not know anything really outside of the town. And it just hit me in my gut that we need to take these kids. I got to show them at least downtown Greenville. And so I went home. I told my wife, I said, hey, I really want to take the students on trips. She said, sounds great. I'll help plan them. We can do that. Went to the school. Obviously, there's a lot of red tape when you're talking about taking students on trips. So I basically had to do it on my own on the outside. So what I created was a foundation called the Teach from DeHart Foundation, which is to play off Teach from the Heart instead of that Teach from DeHart. Okay. And so what it became was the idea, I'm going to take these students that have been entrusted to me and use donor money to take them on trips and provide experiences in the classroom and outside the classroom. And so started with an academic piece. We had a lot of fun engaging academics. The scores for the students were higher than the district average, which was at that school at that time was a great thing because it was not the case previously. And then when we started to COVID hit, so couldn't take the students in that class on trips. So it really started in year 2. And we started taking students on what we called pod trips, which were these groups of 4. Parents would sign a release form and they would go with me in my truck with me and my wife, and we would take them on a trip somewhere where there was rock climbing, a basketball game, zip lining, and then we would take them to dinner. And the goal of taking them to dinner was so many students or kids nowadays, you go into a restaurant, they're either on an iPad, not engaging in the conversation, And I understand sometimes you just want to have adult conversation. But again, they're on an iPad. They don't know how to order properly.
Mm-hmm.
And that waiter will walk up, and these kids are 11, 12 years old. The mom is ordering for them. That to me is mind boggling. Oh, Lord have mercy. I can only imagine looking at my parents and being like, order for me.
Yeah, man.
And so I said, we got to teach them this. And then on top of those skills of interacting with a waiter or waitress, interacting in phone or in conversation, no phones were allowed.
Mm-hmm.
So you couldn't have your phones. And then how to tip properly, right? What did that look like? And then there was a math lesson in that, right? Teaching them, my wife would always teach them the decimal game and how you break it down and to get the proper tip and amount, all of that. So we started taking them on these trips, and then the scores got even higher in the classroom. Kids were engaged. They were fired up. One group would go on a pod trip that weekend. The next Monday, everybody's asking, where did you go? What did you do? What was it? Oh, that's cool. I went here. And so conversation was starting, and I said, well, you know what? I want to fly these kids somewhere. And so I wasn't just going to do the local trip. I wanted to do a national trip, somewhere where they would get on a flight in an airplane. So I present the idea to my board. The board is like, fantastic, let's do it. So we, at that point, after we started taking the students on trips, we had already formalized the foundation, the safety regulations, insurance, all of those things to make sure we were covered. And then the board they loved the idea of taking them on trips, taking them somewhere on the plane. And in our first year, we took 20 students, to which 18 of them had never seen an airport.
Wow.
And so to fly them.
Seneca Hills Bible Camp and Retreat Center is a hidden gem located just north of Pittsburgh in Venango County. Personally, when I attended their men's weekend, I was blown away by the beauty of the surroundings, the quality of the facilities, and the superiority of the cuisine. This is not your typical camp food, folks. Seneca Hills hosts year-round retreats and conferences, but their true passion is summer camp, where campers, both kids and adults, escape the everyday tyranny of screens and distractions and immerse themselves in 250 acres of God's gorgeous creation. Go to senecahills.org or call my good buddy, Executive Director Lyndon Fowler, to learn more about how Seneca Hills Bible Camp and Retreat Center can help you, your kids, or your business create unforgettable memories, meaningful friendships, and a deeper understanding of God's love. Wow.
And so to fly them, we actually had to fly them to Atlanta, Georgia, because it was the only place open during COVID. And as I was on that trip, the parents cornered me. They said, you should start a school. And I laughed and was like, I'm only a second-year teacher. There's no shot that's happening.
What?
And
Really?
I was like, whatever, that's no big deal. Yes. And so 6 months later, I was visiting my wife's family, and I saw a school building in Arnold, Pennsylvania, and had a very clear vision of what could be, which was a school that would change a community. I had a very, very clear vision of a school that uses education to revitalize a small town. And through that, the idea started spinning in my mind of, okay, should we start a Teach from DeHart Academy? 3 months after that, we bought a building, and we've been on that process ever since, from 2022 on.
So, okay, that's crazy. That is so cool. So, okay, but back up for a second. I think I need you to fill in a few gaps real quick for me.
Yep.
So, at the point that the parents cornered you, said, we want you to start a school, and then you show up in Arnold and you decide to buy this school. Was there like talk or like, I don't know, planning? Like, okay, what would this look like? Yes, I think we should start a school. I mean, and then you didn't just randomly kind of show up in Arnold, PA. I know you guys, you and your wife decided to move there, or not technically
later.
Arnold, but that area. Okay.
Yes.
It was later. Okay. So maybe you weren't even convinced yet until you got, I'll let you fill in the gaps.
That's like the 5,000 foot view. There's obviously a lot of details that come through. So the parents cornered me. They say that. I go into my third year of teaching, and I actually was blessed enough to win the Greenville County School District Emerging Teacher of the Year Award, which is only for second year teachers across the entire district. And so I was blessed to win that award. In that, God just gave me a chance to reflect on a lot of the wins, right? And I loved being able to look back and see the wins. And I honestly, I thought like, hey, this award is kind of a solidifying mark on an early career. Let's keep moving in the right direction. And there were great things that came from it. There were opportunities to grow the foundation, opportunities to push out what we were doing in our classroom to other educators. Colleges in the local area wanted me to come speak. So there was good opportunity, but then there was also the negative side of it, right? You take an award like that, and eyes get put on you, and sometimes not in an encouraging way. There was some questions about, our students' test scores. I even had somebody come in and was watching me teach to try to critique and to, in my opinion, tear down, because the scores were so high. They called the students actually the literate illiterate. I remember that conversation in front of my students, by the way.
And real quick, just to clarify, that's a good point, actually, to clarify real quick. These students that you were kind of given some of the harder students to deal with. Is
there
that
were
right?
certain students actually in the class that were almost illiterate.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So to them, actually, it was one student. It broke my heart. After that person, I asked, basically, we ended that conversation. I said, do you need anything else? Thank you so much. I have to teach, and dismiss them in a very kind and formal way. And the student looked at me, who really struggles with reading. I mean, this kid struggled so much. He looked at me and said, did she just call us stupid? And I went and I said, you know what, this is a chance for me to be honest with you. And I said, yeah, she did. I said, but I don't think that. And I know you're not. And that student ended up making A's and B's at the end of the year, and scoring his highest English scores he'd ever scored. He worked so hard. But again, right, those negative pieces started to weigh on me to the point where I actually considered quitting.
Sure.
I told my wife I'm miserable, that this is teaching and this is what I'm gonna have to deal with, doing everything that I do. And it was just a lot of DeHart's trying too hard. Stop making other people look bad. I had a couple of those conversations to tone down my either masculinity or tone down my intensity, because it makes the other people look bad. All of those conversations came up.
That
I was
is
ready to walk away.
Yeah, that's envy, and it's something that I think is insidious in the church, and it comes in little subtle ways sometimes like that. I equate it to like when I ran track in high school, and I was one of those guys I practiced hard because I wanted to do hard, but especially when I'm a sophomore, like some of the older kids were like, dude, stop trying to be Superman. Like, you're making us all work hard.
Correct.
Correct. It's a very childish way to go about it. And it's very selfish. So
well, and you see it heavily, I'll be honest with you, in education. And you see it, it's not just
it makes me so angry.
It does. Trust me, it upsets me, because my biggest thing is that the students are the number one piece, right? It's not about me. And a lot of people think they have made those statements, oh, it's all about you. Well, no, just because I'm energetic and outgoing and have that persona does not mean it's all about me. I might be doing all these things that people are going, oh, look what he's doing. But when you go, oh, look what he's doing, let's take a relook and say, look what their scores are. Or look at these students, how they're succeeding outside of academics. These students can hold a conversation with you. These students can give a presentation in front of the class. These students have a depth of knowledge understanding that goes beyond just answering a multiple choice question. These students can get deep with you. They can make eye contact. They'll shake your hand. So all these things that were being presented in the classroom are not being presented other places. Education right now is seen as a place where you get the answer. It's basically sit, learn, recite, and check the box to the next spot. That is why we're behind in America. You're going to get me on a rant, though, if I keep going this far. Okay, in that, right, I was ready, because of all those things, I was ready to quit. I genuinely was like, I'm done. I'm good. I think that I'll just go do something else. And my wife was like, well, let's get out of town and let's go to see my parents in Pittsburgh. And I said, that's fine. Let's do it. So we took a weekend trip, went to see her parents in Pittsburgh. And I was at a church service and didn't really want to go to the church service. I honestly didn't want to do anything. I just kind of wanted to be alone. And my wife convinced me to go. And so I was in the service, and they had a gentleman named Kevin Bodie who was there speaking, and he runs a community cafe in New Kensington. And he started to talk about the poverty rate and the intensity of the poverty and all of that in the area. And I was just like, wow, I didn't realize that was the case. I'm going to go walk around. And so I told my wife I was going to go walk. And as I was walking, I took a wrong turn. I thought I was in another place, and I wasn't. I was in Arnold.
You didn't take a wrong turn. God,
Correct.
the Holy Spirit was absolutely guiding you, right? Anyway,
100%. It is. And when I turned, I saw the building. I thought it was a functional school building at first. And then I walked over and saw a for sale sign, and then had a very clear, visible, like physical vision. I saw it all. Boom. Here's what this is going to look like. Here's what the building looked like. And I had really the first pitch deck for the DeHart Academy, which would educate students as well as their parents.
Wow.
And give a whole community the chance to learn together, developing educational tools, learning how to be successful, financial literacy opportunities, all of that, so you can build generational wealth and break the mold of generational poverty.
Man. Wow. So this is on a trip to your wife's parents.
Just to visit. Mm-hmm.
Just to visit. So then what did that conversation look like with your wife? I mean, did you go back? Your face just said it all. Did you go back and was she as excited about this vision as you were?
She told me to lock it in a box and tuck it away. It was
I love our wives. So that's great.
I called her and I said, I found it. And she's like,
oh my gosh,
you're in Arnold. Like, what did you find? That could be a lot of things. And I said, I found the building. We're going to put a school. We're going to open a school here in Arnold. And she just was silent. She was just completely silent. She's like, Matt, what? And I said, let me come pick you up. So I picked her up, took her to see the building, and we were sitting there, and I pretty much gave the first pitch of what this school could be, what it would do, what it would be for the community. And she was like, no shot. So that was like immediate shutdown.
Wow. Okay.
And then I looked up the price of the building, and it's a 28,000 square foot school building, and it was listed for $150,000.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, this is cheap. Like, this is cheaper than our home. Like, I know it needs a lot of work, but like, look at what we could do. We could at least own the property, right? And get started. She was like, no. And then on the drive home, started the conversation again of like, I think this could be it. And she was like, well, you're not making a decision right now. And she was like, you're going to need to think on this and pray about it. So you need to take time. She really told me kind of like 2 weeks. It was like, you need to just think, pray. She said, because number one, you're asking me to uproot a life that I love in South Carolina. She's from Pittsburgh, from the area, but she had her friends there. Her work was great there. She's like, you're asking me to uproot that. Number two, she's like, if you do this thing, you have to do it. Because this community is used to people coming in with all these conversations and never following through. And she was like, so if you do it, you need to follow through on it. And I was like, okay, I got it. So I did. I took 2 weeks and actually went and met with my dad. We went on a trip together, the two of us, 2 weeks later. And I said, Dad, this is what I want to do. And I pitched to him the entire plan. And he said, okay. He was like, I think you've thought this out. You need to talk to Kaylee. So I called her and I said, hey, we're going to do this thing. I've thought about it. This is what's going to happen. And she was like, okay, you've given it the time. And so once I got her green light, I called my board, who had no idea. So I called them all one by one and was like, hey, I'm going to need you for a meeting this week. I've got something to discuss.
Yeah. And
they're like, okay, is it bad? I was like, no, it's good. It's good. I just, I'm going to put together a thing about it. And then I called a meeting that Saturday and they all get on. And I was like, so this is it. And I presented the school and they're all just looking, going, what? This is not even what we signed up for. We signed up to be a board to help your students go on trips, which we know this all plays a part in it, but this is a really big undertaking. And so I asked them that they would consider doing a 3-year commitment to the board until we got to 2025, and all of them did.
Wow.
And in that, they gave me the green light to go forward if we had 75% of the money fundraised by the time to purchase.
Okay.
So that took us, this is all in the span of a week. So bam, bam, bam,
Wow.
bam. Of course, I'm having to keep kind of everything under wraps, so we're all kind of keeping this secretive as we're working through what this might look like. And I went up to see the building with my dad the next week. Funny enough, actually crazy how that worked out. So I kept calling the realtor, and when I'm calling the realtor, I'm not getting an answer. So as I call the realtor 2-3 times, it was like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I get a call back. And so I take the call, and the realtor's like, sorry, the building was under contract. That's why I didn't call you back. And I was like, oh, dang. Okay. That sounds good. I appreciate you letting me know. And she's like, no, it was under contract until Saturday night or Sunday night. Now, mind you, Sunday night was the night that I decided to go for it.
Oh, wow.
And so that was the night I made the final decision. This is what's going to happen. Let's go for it. So whoever was under contract pulled out that night.
Wow.
Which opened the door for me to get that opportunity. I said, hey, can I come up and see the building? And she goes, yes, it'll need to be towards Thanksgiving. I said, well, I'm a coach, so I can't. I'm at basketball. I said, do you have anything like soon? And she goes, no, my mother has to do something. She was helping her mom with something. On the phone call, gets a call, comes back to me and says, actually, the thing with my mother just got canceled. Can you come up this Saturday at 10 a.m.?
Whoa.
And I said, yes, we'll be there. And so showed up, we go, there was me and another person coming to look at the building. By the end of the day, that other person had dropped out, and it was just the DeHart Foundation looking at the building. We knew kind of a general idea of what we needed to fundraise, $150,000. 3 months later, through God's provision, we only had $25,000 raised. And the board said, nope, we're not going to approve it. I get off a board meeting in tears because I'm like, God, you told me this. What is this going on? And I got a phone call from a donor, and he said, I'm going to write you $100,000 check.
Wow.
And I said, what? And he said, go buy the building, start this school.
Wow.
And so we had 125 raised. We ended up having some things in the building go down that at the time I'm like, no, there's issues in the building. And my father-in-law was like, that's okay because we don't own it yet. And so things push comes to shove. We ended up buying the building for $39,000.
Whoa. So down from 150, you bought it for $39,000.
$39,000.
What?
And then we utilized the rest of that money to take students on trips for the next 2 years.
Dude, I am blown away. So here, this whole time, your board is thinking, okay, we're going to go with you on this crazy trip, and we're going to raise money for this crazy school you've got some crazy vision for.
Correct.
I mean, we really just started this for kids to go on trips. And then the very money that they were raising for the school ends up being used for the trips that they originally signed up for.
Correct.
First place.
Yes. So we took 50 students, 50 of my former students. We flew them up to Pittsburgh to see the building.
Oh, that's so cool.
To see Pittsburgh. So it was great to do that. And then the following year took students to Atlanta, Georgia, and provided opportunities at the school I was at, Bob Jones Academy in South Carolina, that following year. And then we've come up here, and we only ran out of that initial funding from that time frame before we moved up to Pennsylvania a year and a half ago. So we had it for almost 2 years.
What a ride. I'm exhausted, Matt.
That's my life, is a state of exhaustion at this point. That's what I've agreed to. But like I said, I tell people, now you guys that are listening, you're understanding, pray for my wife. Her name is Kaylee. She needs prayer. Because this is what she deals with on a daily basis.
Makes you appreciate her all the more, knowing that, I mean, look, it's natural for someone, because she's probably used to you being in some ways spur of the moment, and she needs to be the one that kind of pulls the reins. My wife does that for me too.
Correct.
I'm the one who wants to jump head first, and she's like, whoa, wait a second, you know?
Yes.
So praise God for that. We need that. We need those governing kind of influences in our lives from our wives like that. But then she gave you the time and said, take a couple weeks and decide in that time frame. So she's kind of, in a sense, entrusting this whole thing to the Lord, entrusting you to the Lord too.
Correct.
To kind of, okay, God, I can only imagine the prayers that she would be praying during that time, right? Like, oh God, please.
I can guarantee it was probably like.
Jeff Dougherty with Allstate Insurance has the distinction of being the very first sponsor of the Redemptive Economics podcast, and I couldn't be happier to promote his services. I've known Jeff for many years now, both as his pastor and friend, and man, I can say with confidence that he is a man of strong faith who aligns well with the Redemptive Economics values. So reach out to Jeff. He can offer you options for a wide variety of coverage and services. He's committed to helping Pittsburgh residents assess their immediate and long-term needs and choose options that will help you achieve your goals. When you want to explore options for protecting your home, personal property, or financial future, Jeff Dougherty is your guy. You'll find Jeff's contact information in the show notes. Hey, go grab a cup of coffee with him, get to know him, even if it's just to review your current coverage in case you need to make adjustments. And I promise you're going to love Jeff every bit as much as I do. Please.
I can guarantee it was probably like, just shut this down. Shut this down. That's probably what she was saying, honestly. And there's probably times even now she's like, shut this down. But it's been a really crazy process, and it has not all been those wonderful moments, right?
Yeah.
When we started, God made it very clear. When we took the leap of faith, so I was at the school, the original school, the public school I was teaching at when we started the process. I am not a guy that lives in gray areas, so there was some discussion about, hey, if you're starting a school, even if it's not local, should you be the district might not want you teaching in the school because of conflict of interest, all that stuff. So with that, I was like, okay, God, I need to transition out of this current scenario into something. I'm not ready to make the leap to Pittsburgh yet, but I need something. And Bob Jones Academy called me, offered me an opportunity to work as like an administrator, protege kind of thing, program under the administration, learn from them, and then teach 8th grade history. And so I had a chance to it was the most amazing experience that year at Bob Jones Academy. Doug Abels, who's he's the head of school at Bob Jones Academy, God-fearing man. He gave me the best advice I've ever received, I think, in this process, which was to look up, not out. He said, wow. When you've got people coming at you, he's like, because they will, you're in leadership. He said, look up, not out. If you can look up and honestly feel good about it, then the out doesn't matter. You know, you take them into consideration, you listen, you absorb, but you have to look up and say, okay, God, I know this is the right thing. And I tell you, the amount of times I have to look up and not out during this process is more than I ever expected. And so just getting that opportunity to be a part of that school was wonderful. And then, you know, after that, we made the leap. We said, we're going to move, and we're going to do this thing. We're going to give ourselves about 1.5 years, 2 years in Pittsburgh, where we can try to make an impact and set our feet down and make sure these people know we're not just a fly-by-night mission. You know, we're out here to be a part of the community, and we've been able to do that ever since.
Wow. Remind me, Matt, who connected us? Oh, that's right. I forgot. No, we were at that event together.
Amazing Shake.
I can't believe I totally forgot about that. Okay. So Isn't it amazing? Man, God is guiding our steps. He knows. We don't know. We don't know where we're going. You didn't know you were going to get lost, turn the corner, and run into your destiny.
Correct.
You know
Correct.
What I mean?
And even that, like the Amazing Shake. So when we met at the Amazing Shake, that is something that I had run at the 2 schools previous. And so because I had been running that at the 2 schools previous, and because I had connected with Ron Clark and the Ron Clark Academy, Harvest Baptist Academy called me and asked me to come and help with theirs. And so that's where you were at the same event, and being at the same event, we met each other there. But that's, again, it's like, had I not run those events previously, I wouldn't have gotten the call to go to help Harvest and be a part of their excellently run event. Yeah. Honestly, they didn't even need me there. I was like, you guys knocked this out of the park. Right. But then we were able to meet there, and now obviously the opportunities to connect with you and those in the group as well with Faith at Work has been wonderful because of those steps, like you said, that God's guiding. Yeah. I know you meant Truth at Work, because that's what I meant. 100%. Yeah. I said that. Truth at Work. Edit time. But great point. So Linda Miller, I believe, is right. Linda Miller is the one who runs the Great Shake and up at Amazing Shake.
Amazing Shake. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, so we correct each other. We're even now. Okay. Yeah, she did an amazing job, and I have interviewed her previously. So if you want to go back, if as your listener, and you want to learn more about what that is, she just killed it in her interview with us and sharing the incredible impact and very similar. It's so crazy as I'm talking to folks like you, these entrepreneurs who are venturing out, and I know people are going to get sick of me saying this all the time, but entree means to venture out, to actually to dive out, to swim out into the deep, and then preneur has to do with prende or comprende, comprehend. So you're diving out into the unknown in order to grasp, learn new knowledge, and man, that is that's a story of that's your story. And then not only that, but it's your story of doing that. And the thing that we don't realize is you're not alone when you venture out like this. God is with you. He is present with you. He is providing for you. He is guiding you. And Valerie Bowden, who I spoke to in the last interview, but before I interviewed you just now, is she said, she talked about trusting in God's call on your heart. And to just start to head out in that direction of obedience, and she said, and then it will how did she say it? Something like, it will be what it was meant to be. And so that's something that I think we as entrepreneurs need to remind ourselves of, that we're holding these things open-handedly, right? So as you started out to do this, things have changed. There have been challenges and failures and restarts and pivoting and starting all sorts of, you're constantly iterating, right? And you never end up where you think you're going to when you get started. But
Correct.
Yeah.
It's cool to see that God is orchestrating things. I've been telling people recently, like, I'm at the point now, I'm like, all right, God, like, I hear you. We can stop with the whole building thing for like a couple months, and then we can come back to it. But like, let's just take some pause time, like some good time where I'm not getting smacked upside the head. But it's never ending, right? Because when we're growing, we're always trying to, at the end of the day, no matter what we're doing, we're trying to emulate Christ, and we are never going to be Christ. But in that, God is growing us, molding us, shaping us, and forging us into what He wants us to be, and what He wants our plans to be. So this school started out, the general idea has not changed, but the ways that we're going about it and the details have shifted and adjusted and pivoted. And so, and to where it feels good, because I know it's what He's doing. When I try to take the reins, I can tell it's not working because things don't go well when I'm trying to take the reins. So. Absolutely.
Okay. So I want you to share, in just a moment, not yet. I'm gonna ask you a question before this, but I want to preface it with something. So I'm gonna want you to share more details about what your philosophy, model, strategy of Teach from DeHart is. Explain it to folks, because it's different, and I think some light bulbs are going to go off as you explain it, which will be great. But before you do, I am so grateful, Matt, that God did connect us and that you've gotten to be part of Truth at Work with me out in Greensburg, the Greensburg group. Can you just share a moment or two about the impact or the benefit that Truth at Work, the roundtable, has been for you?
Yeah, Truth at Work has been a great opportunity not only to connect with people in the local community, like within Westmoreland County, to get to know more people, but it's great to connect with believers. I mean, to be in a situation where people are constantly redirecting you to follow the Lord's will, to seek Scripture, and providing Scripture. A lot of times people give great advice, but it's like, here's your advice, and they walk away. With Truth at Work, there's a follow-up. There's an accountability that I appreciate, that we hold each other to. Like, hey, you said you were going to do this. What does this look like? Has this gotten done? And it's not in a way that I feel that, I can't share. No, I didn't get this done. Or I can explain why. They can say, oh, I've faced that before. And so to be able to have believers in your community, right, who are instilling their values in you, making sure that you understand you're taken care of, and then you're able to do the same for them is really powerful. And the roundtable format I love, because it opens the door for discussion. Everybody has a chance to peep in and do what they, say what they think is necessary, and pretty much put your pride at the door. and be
That's a good
willing
way of
to
saying it.
take,
Yeah.
sometimes take an L. Like, I've had a couple times where the guys in the group have basically, I've taken an L. Like, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh man, that stung a little bit, but it was needed, right?
Mm.
It was good. It was said in love, but I'm a sensitive cat. So I'm like, oh man, I messed up, but it's so good.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
then to see Mike, see your smiling face, I mean, that's the icing on the cake. So
You're welcome. It's worth it. I know. I know. You're hilarious. No, I appreciate that, man. Thank you for sharing that. I agree. It is, we often call it's a safe, confidential place, but it's not necessarily
correct.
a soft place.
Yeah.
So
And that's good. That's so much of that's a societal issue, right? We could talk about that all day, but the idea that we need to be delicate with everything it's not applicable. There are things to be delicate in, and there's ways to be harsh in love.
Absolutely.
Right. And
that's right.
by loving someone, you stay harsh. And that's why I tell people, like, Kaylee is kind and caring, and she knows that I'm a sensitive person, but there are times that she's just like, no, like she has to cut to the brim. And that's life. You have to be willing to do that. And if you're going to be in the business world, it never stops moving.
Yeah.
So there's just not the time to be soft and gentle. Honestly, you can say harsh things in love, which I think Truth at Work does a great job of implementing that environment to do that.
That's a great point. Yeah, because we do, as business leaders, you spend so much time like driving forward in your contacts, in your sphere of influence. And often a lot of business leaders and business owners are used to honestly deflecting a lot of feedback because you get so much. And this gives you a space where you can really let go and let down your guard and receive what God has for you. Okay, so I am somebody who has I have baggage when it comes to the education system, Matt.
Yeah.
And you've played a role for me as others who are kind of taking a more entrepreneurial approach to education have just in terms of giving me perspective and even some ways healing, I might even say. So I had a terrible school experience. I mean, to the point where to this day I have to watch, because when I walk into an elementary school or my son's high school or middle school or something, the smell of the school, I have a visceral reaction, emotional reaction, because I had so much trauma, and it was had to do with the fear and insecurity that I had during that time, and the teachers and the coaches, unfortunately, there were good ones, but mostly bad ones that really had some negative impact on me, and I just took a beating, mentally and emotionally through that process, because I would not conform or bend into that convention in a sense that they're looking for. So from that perspective, I really appreciate your approach. Man, do I appreciate it. I wish there was someone like you who would have come alongside me when I was younger to do what you're doing with kids today. So with that said, please explain what I think is just one of the most innovative, incredible approaches to education.
Thank you, Mike. And to share those things, Mike, you need to know, number one, that you're heard, and that you are not the only one. Okay. The reason why the parent piece is so important to what Teach from DeHart is all about is because so many parents have such a negative vibe when it comes to school, that the reason they're not involved in their child's education normally is not because they don't, care about their kid, or it's because they had such a negative experience that they don't want anything to do with it. And so that trauma doesn't get dealt with. And so it gets put on the kid, then it can cause a spiral, right? It's just, or this constant repeat effect, right? So it's okay that you feel that way. You don't need to, I tell people all the time, don't feel like you have to pivot because I'm a passionate educator and say, oh, school is great. Like, some people don't like school. And I'll tell you, honestly, the American education system is not great. It's not great right now. Doesn't mean that there aren't great teachers in it. There are plenty of them. A lot of them are quitting now. To be honest with you, a lot of them are quitting because they see it's not great and they're trying to fix it, and they're getting shot down so heavily. So there's so much to this, right? But the education that the DeHart education system really, and what we say is building better students no matter the resources, right? And so the idea is that no matter where they come from, whether it's a Title I environment, remote Africa, Pakistan, or the top tier private school in the country, the way that we approach education builds better students. And that doesn't always mean high-rise academic success. That's a part of it. Yes, our students have success, but what we like to say is we have high academic standards and high social standards, and they work together to even out the student to make them well-rounded, right? And so high academics is obvious, right? You're talking about deeper thinking skills, conversational pieces in class, being able to expound on things educationally, not just reciting back answers. So part of the educational system we have is no multiple choice. We do not do multiple choice because that's not a way of learning. That is a way to put down a quick answer. You have 25% of it to get it right. If it's an A-B conversation, you got 50% chance to get it right. That's not learning. You've got to be able to explain yourself. So through our education system, students learn to explain themselves at a deeper level, using proper vocabulary, developing their vocabulary, and developing those speaking skills, which comes with the social piece. And this is how it works together. Every day in class, we're in conversation, and it's not just wasted time. It's heavy, intense. Why is this the way it is? What do you think about this? Explain this, present this to the class. We do a lot of where students are actually the ones teaching the class. So the teacher gives the basis, and then we've empowered the student to say, you're in an environment that's safe. You can fail. Okay. You can have a mess up. You can even cry. It's okay because no one's going to make fun of you in this classroom. We're all here. We've all done it. Me being the first one to say it, right? I hated speaking in front of people when I was a kid. I was very active if I knew you. I was goofy and funny. But if you put me in front of a class, I would almost panic. Now I speak in front of crowds of hundreds of people because over time, people taught me, and I was kind of self-taught, those strategies and ways to go about it, right? In that, our education system is different because we set the bar so high for the students on both levels that if it's an academic student, they're going to feel like they're pushed. If it's a student that's not great at academics, guess what? They're still pushed because we're channeling those other pieces of the academic journey that are not hit on, where students learn how to conversate with each other, conversate with an adult, write a proper email. The amount of emails that I will get in a classroom, and it's typos, and this is not even from students. This is from parents. Typos, just things that weren't covered, right? So we take those pieces, and then on top of that, we have a travel incentive. So we want our students to experience the world. The DeHart education system is all about creating opportunities, developing goals, and changing lives. Well, the best way you can create an opportunity is by giving a student a chance to see something they've never experienced before. Yeah. It doesn't mean you have to go, first thing you got to do is fly to sub-Saharan Africa. Okay. What that means is taking the kids to downtown Greenville, right? That 20-minute journey was life-changing for them. They had never seen this bridge. They didn't know what it looked like, right? That gave them a chance to say, there's more out there than the Walmart in my hometown, right? And so that creating opportunities, and through those opportunities, you're showing them a different side of life. And that helps them to start to develop their goals. What do those goals look like? Okay, now I've seen all these things. Oh my gosh, you mean there's a whole thing where I could be a vet tech, or I could be a doctor, or I could be an attorney, or I could even create content? That could be a job? Yes, those are opportunities, right? Showing them that, helping them develop goals. And at the end of it, we hope that we can change their life. That when they leave our school, they're prepared for job interviews. They're prepared to become a part of the economy. They're prepared to be a proper citizen and wherever they are. And those things come from conversational skills, soft skill development, and being cool under pressure, which are things we're not showing kids. We're dumbing down the system. We're not bringing it up. And the thing is, people think that if you set the standard high, well, what if they can't get it? That's our job, to tier them there. Scaffold. If I set the bar really high here instead of here, Mike, if I go here, that student might reach here. But what if I go here and they go in the middle? Yeah. Now they've taken a step further than they would have if I would have just set the standard low, which is what we're facing now. It's the idea that if you're uncomfortable in our schools, oh, we don't want you to be uncomfortable. No, that's life. Life is going to make you uncomfortable, but it's giving them the ability to work in those uncomfortable scenarios and build their confidence. That's what the DeHart education system does. Through our intentional educational techniques, I sing, I dance, I even stand on the tables and rap. And it is horrid. When I tell you my rapping skills are of 0%. But you know what? I go up there and I do it because it's whatever it takes to get them to see there's something exciting about learning. Yeah. That's what we're trying to do. And so that's like the
Joe Hodoba and Hodoba Consulting is who I use for my promotional and marketing needs. Joe is a seasoned professional with 2 decades of experience in the dynamic realms of sales and marketing. Throughout Joe's journey, he's witnessed the ebb and flow of businesses, understanding intimately what it takes to navigate the fine line between success and failure. His diverse background spans industries from logistics to banking and advertising, giving him a comprehensive view of the entrepreneurial struggle. And I can say that from experience, he understands us. Those of us who are entrepreneurs. In every role, his focus has remained unwavering, driving business development, spearheading impactful marketing strategies, and fostering sustainable growth. Plus, when you work with Joe, you will learn a ton through the process. I speak from experience. So reach out to Joe today. His contact information is in the show notes, and you will be so glad you did.
That's what we're trying to do. And so that's like the nutshell of the DeHart education system, obviously with a lot of details thrown in there as you were to dive deeper.
Gosh, I love it. So coming from, I was a men's ministry pastor for a while, and I've discipled men for a long time, and just being in a ministry for a while, Young Life, and then in the church. And one of the things that really surprised me, because through Young Life, I'd have to raise money, of course, for our budget. And so I'd build relationships with business leaders in the community. And through that, and then also building relationships with men at the church as a men's pastor, I was blown away by how many men are deeply insecure about anything academic. So often there's a high rate of men who are dealing with dyslexia, but I've met some really powerful business leaders who in their vulnerable moment told me they don't read because it's overwhelming. They can't, it's too much. They've learned how to get by through just skimming emails and then quick responses back. I relate to that a lot, just based on my own academic experience, like I said before. What I love about what you're doing is, you're building up the confidence of the individual in who they are, in who God created them to be, and then giving them a language and an opportunity, a space to be able to express that. And then not only that, but to interact with others and grow in their confidence, just interacting with others. I just feel like there would be, if that was better married to the academic process, if you will, or our education system, oh my gosh, would it be powerful. But I think most teachers and most schools would say, oh, no, we don't have time for that. No.
And to their defense, Mike, I'll be honest with you, the way the system's set up, you don't. Unless you are willing to take an L on some of the things that, they consider important, which I did. Actually, funny enough, our scores are always so high, right? It's not an issue of it's I'm willing to drop certain things because I'm not just checking a box, but so many people in education are checking a box because they don't know any better, or they have to. Like, they will lose their job. I mean, it is sad. Our education system is in a sad state. And it's because we have constrained and removed the ability for free thinking on our educational front. It is, they call it free thinking, but it's really not. It's the idea that you've got to make sure you hit these points. And if you don't hit these points, that's incorrect. Whereas if we had open discussion and conversations and students felt empowered to speak, for instance, I just got hired to teach at a local school and be the men's basketball coach. In my in-between time before I start the school next year, the teach from DeHart Academy in the fall of 25. There was a student who literally I might have spoken 2 words to, and I've been subbing in this school for a year. He now stands in front of the class a week into our times and speaks.
Dude, praise God, man. That's amazing.
He struggles with, so cool. He's such an empowering piece. I've told him how proud I am. He struggles with anxiety. And I mean, you can see it on him. It is there. But you know what? He does it because he feels empowered to do it. And that's what the educational system we're building is. That's what our academy is all about, is that we are here to empower the next generation of leaders. And if they have those basic skills and they can master that, doesn't matter where they land, they're going to be successful. That's why we say we're building better students.
Yeah. And just so to give people, I don't know if you said this word, but this, I know this resonates with me and maybe it would resonate with others as you're describing this too, is think of soft skills, think of relational
Yes.
skills.
Yes.
These are some of the things that you are working in, and you take your curriculum or content and you integrate it into the
Correct.
curriculum that's already being used in schools. So,
Correct.
yeah.
It can be used anywhere. That's the beautiful piece. And so we are in the midst of developing a curriculum right
Yeah.
now and putting everything we do into practice so that it can be used anywhere at any time, whether you have access to internet or not. You can still build these excellent students. And it comes from high standards. It really does, guys. We got to get back to the basics. You know, in my classroom, I've got 20 rules, guidelines, if you want to call them that, right? That's the more fun term, guidelines. But 20 rules that you have to follow. And some of those are yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. Those are eye contact when someone is speaking. Shake hands by greeting them properly with a smile. Fold your clothes. If you have clothes, don't just throw them on the ground. Fold them up, or put your jackets, because the students wear like suit jackets. Put your suit jacket on the back of the desk, right? Sit up. You have to sit up while you're listening because that shows active engagement. No hands on your faces while you're listening. Those things that we're not pushing for, those are the little pieces that get students to be engaged because they're focused on those pieces as they're working, and then they develop, oh, I've done that right. I've done that right. And now their confidence builds over time. But you integrate all of that in. So it's not me taking a whole nother section to say, here's soft skill time.
Yeah.
What it
Right.
is this is every day. This is in the classroom, outside the classroom. If I speak to you, you're expected to speak back and give me conversation. Like one student, he's a freshman. I see him. He struggles with conversation. And I said, okay, so now I've said, hello, how are you? He says, good. And I go, okay, now what's the next step? Oh yeah, details. He goes, oh yeah, details. And so he will say now it's, hey, good morning. How are you? I'm good. Today I got to, and I say, that's awesome. Fantastic. You know, I got to do this. Have a good day. Right. It's those things that are just naturally integrated that are not that difficult to put in, but you have to be intentional. And that's a tough piece for some people.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, that's such a missing piece from the education system right now. It's so yeah, it's so black and white in a sense in terms of what's required of kids, and they can simply just memorize and spit it back out. And
And they can also just not do the work. I mean,
Yeah,
honestly,
well-
we're at a point now where students don't have to do the work and they still receive 50% of the credit because the idea is that it hurts you. And then I go, this is the way I've painted it when I've had the discussion. Is that, okay, you have a job and it's hourly. So let's say school is an hourly position, point blank period. You put in the time, you get the pay, which is the grade, right? So if you don't show up to work, they're not just going to give you 50% of your paycheck.
Right.
You don't get anything.
Yep.
You're out that money, right? So again, how are we should be preparing these kids for life. But again, when I explained that to the students, it clicked. They were like, oh, I see now. I said, do you understand there's an actual piece to this? It's not just, yes, I'm mandated to go to school. You've got to learn this consistency piece, because if you become the person that doesn't go to work, you're not going to have money. You're not going to be able to live the life you think you're going to live because you see all the social media influencers. That's not going to be you.
Yeah.
We got to figure this out. So again, intentional, framing it to where they can understand it. That is when they feel like they're empowered to do that. Like by them knowing that, they go, I got it. I'm going to school now because I got to get this bread, right? That's their thought. So giving them that empowering tool to be a part of that process, it's a lot of fun.
Man, I love that. I think school will kind of take, well, it has, or the education system kind of specializes in a sense the what and the how. This
Yep.
brings in that who piece, like you discover
Correct.
who you are as you're interacting, because that's man, we can so isolate, and especially in our insecurities, if like I was, like, thankfully I was actually an outgoing, very relational person, which I think is what got me through school. So it was the relationships,
here.
right, that motivated me to keep going and interacting and stay engaged. But I know there are some people that aren't naturally, and so what happens? They withdraw within themselves. I think that's where you get students that struggle with depression and despair and
Correct.
discouragement, and you end up, I hate to say it, but things like school shootings or hit lists, things like this. I mean, no wonder. I mean, you're not even recognizing or giving space to who this person is and their value, their inherent God-given value.
Correct.
So,
Correct. And that who piece is so important. These kids need to know that they're loved. And it's not that difficult to portray that. You know, it's one of those things that just by knowing their names. Right. So one thing that I try my best to do is know every name of know the name of every student in school. And right now I'm a weekend and I've probably got like 50% or more.
That's impressive.
And now all my classes I've covered, but I'm intentional about, I'll ask their name and then recite it back to them. Ask their name, recite it back. So then it gets to me. I fist bump every time I see students that aren't in my class. Good morning. How are you? Boom. To where now Mr. DeHart is known by everybody because, oh, that's the teacher that talks to me in the hallway or comes and sits with me at lunch and says, how are you doing? Like, those are things that we have gotten away from. The idea that the content is more important than the one receiving the content is where we are. Oh, and so I remember a teacher told me, I don't have time to stand at my door, because that was part of some of the strategies I was trying to help implement in a previous school. I don't have time to do that because I got to get the stuff ready for class. And I was like, see, we got to flip that. I will engage these students. I will have something on the board for them to work on briefly while I get myself ready to go. If that's really your issue. Now me, I'm prepared regardless. I have it lined up at the beginning of the day. We're good. But in that, if that's a problem for you, okay, still prioritize the student first. Because at the end of the day, they are going to remember maybe 10% to 15% of the content you taught them. But what they're going to remember is how you loved them. That's what they're going to go back to. I loved this class because we were engaged. They won't remember all the discussions. They'll remember the fact there was discussion. They won't remember all the answers on the test, but they'll remember, man, those tests were hard. Yeah. They won't remember all the conversations, but they'll remember that you spoke to them. That is what we're missing. And that's what the DeHart education system is all about. And that's what we're trying to implement.
Oh, man. You got me so fired up. I mean, so, it is, when you talk about, alcoholism or poverty or these things, it's often been said like, sobriety is not the opposite of addiction. Connection is the opposite of addiction.
Correct.
Because addiction is kind of a derivative of being disconnected and isolated from people. Very similar to poverty. Poverty is a derivative of a lack of relationships and a scarcity mindset. And what you're doing is you're empowering a community that who's had that scarcity mindset. And I would argue that Pittsburgh in general, I've said this several times on the show, has a scarcity mindset, and it goes back to the steel industry rug pull. And so communities like Arnold and New Kensington, who are right there near a steel mill, suddenly...
Alcoa was created in New Kensington, Arnold. Gosh. It was founded in 1885 in New Kensington. So, you think about that. That's how entrenched Alcoa, the plant, was. Yeah. And like you said, that rug pull hasn't been able to recover fully.
Yep. And what you're doing is coming in and you're hitting on or trying to help with a very core fundamental issue that has roots that will hopefully revitalize the community, right? As you're affirming these students and their parents. And real quick, I almost forgot, I don't want to let you go before we're getting close on time, but if you can, share a little bit about the parent connection there, because this is the first school ever, well, maybe not ever, but at least in the country here recently,
it is
to educate both kids and parents.
Yeah. So what we're seeing here, Mike, is, I noticed in South Carolina that the parents that didn't come in, I would actually make home visits. So I would actually show up to a house and speak with people. Didn't do it all the time, but I would do it consistently. And when especially if I was picking up the kid for like a pod trip, right? I would pick them up and then have the kid. And what I found out is, right, that insecurity was there. And so we needed to engage the parents. And so many parents would say, if I only had a teacher like you, I would be in a different place. If I only had this, right? And so when I saw the DeHart Academy, I just kept hearing, teach the parents. I just kept hearing it. Teach the parents, teach the parents, teach the parents. And I realized, why do we have to say, if I could only have had, why don't we just say, well, you can? You can have it. So what we do is we'll provide GED programming for the parents that don't have a high school diploma, interview techniques and tips, financial planning, help assistance, and then as they've gone through our process, which is usually about a 3 to 5 month process, they will actually, if we have connections to businesses that are looking for entity, like people, they've checked our boxes, we can go to the company and say, hey, look, I've got XYZ for a position. Would you be willing to consider them? They go in, they interview, and if they get the position, now they're walking into a better job because they have their high school diploma now. They have financial literacy training, so they know how to spend the money and save the money and work to where it benefits them, building generational wealth, right? And all of those pieces. And then on top of that, you got the students too. So you got mom, dad, or son or daughter working and learning together. You know, the dream here, the moment that I see that gets me so excited is the idea that we could have an eighth grader walk across the stage, because our school will be 5th through 8th grade middle school. An eighth grader walk across the stage, and then their parents walk across the stage as well, and they both have their DeHart Academy diplomas in hand. Right? That to me is the moment we're trying to create. That to me is the changing lives of the creating opportunities, developing goals, changing lives, right? So that's what we're here to create. We've already had 3 GED graduates in our program. Before the school even started, we started with a partnership with FilterBuy, and we're getting back into that. What does that look like now? As we've kind of developed and grown in our processes recently. And so God is good in that.
Yeah.
You know, God has given this, and it's not me. It's, you know, people ask where did it come from, and I say God, to which most of them are like, oh, okay, really? But where did it come from? Like, no, like seriously, it wasn't. There's no way I could do. Listen, if it was up to me, this would already been all in the ground.
Yeah.
But God is doing this, and what He's creating is really something powerful.
Absolutely. And just FYI, so FilterBuy, for those of you who don't know, is a manufacturing company that I mean, had a great heart in intentionally putting this plant that they have there in a more poverty-stricken area in Arnold in order to help revitalize it. So it's a good fit. Doing a GED
and they allowed them to get their GED on the clock. That's amazing. A really powerful tool. Dude, so we were able to work with them, and we're going to continue that process down the road. We are excited about just all the opportunities to help and be a part as we get ready for the fall of 2025, when we'll open our academy.
Man, Matt, oh my gosh, brother, I am leaving this conversation with a swollen heart because I am so encouraged by what you're doing, brother, and just I feel so blessed to have gotten to meet you at the Great Shake.
Amazing shake.
Oh my gosh, I said it wrong again. I even said it with confidence, thinking I was so right. The amazing shake. Oh my gosh. Yes. I'm so grateful we met. I'm so grateful that you're a part of our Truth at Work roundtable in Greensburg, man. This is why I do what I do with that. You are such a huge reason. So praise God for that. Praise God for you and the vision that He planted in your heart. Praise God for Kaylee, your wife, who followed you and is fiercely supporting and advocating for you. Okay, folks, if you're listening, trust me, Matt could use your support.
Yes.
I know this.
There's no question. Yes, 100%.
Right? So real quick, how can folks connect with you, contact you, follow you, whatever? And then what are some needs that you have right now?
100%. Thanks, Mike, for asking that. And Mike, I just want to say I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for your love. You remind me a lot of my own parents, in that you are the faith in action. And that is you in every way. And so just thank you for being a representative of faith in action. Always, always, always. And, you know, how people can follow. So we are on Facebook at Teach From DeHart Foundation, Teach From, and then DEHART Foundation. And we're also on Instagram. It's connected, Facebook and Instagram. But then for me personally, I have my educational Instagram page, which is at Teach From DeHart. So Teach From, and then my last name, DeHart. And then our website, www.teachfromdehart.org. That has all the information about the school, our curriculum, past trips. You can see photos of previous trips we've taken in the last 3 years with the students, as well as a place to donate. And some of the needs we have right now is we're working through a remodel, and it's an expensive remodel. We're in a $3 million remodel, $250,000 final design. We're working on paying that off in process in like a design build. We are in need of supplies, paint. Obviously, monetary donations are key. We are a registered nonprofit, so the foundation is a 501c3, so tax deductible or tax write-off. And in that, but we paint, supplies for students in the area. We will take those and distribute those out. That could be clothing, that could be school supplies, as well. We need volunteers. And what that looks like is if we can gather volunteers consistently, we could start getting some things done in the building where it's not just me painting by myself and me and my wife. So we definitely need volunteers. And so people can reach out to me via my email, which is my last name, DeHart at teachfromdhart.org. And any help is welcomed. And obviously prayer is so important.
And let me throw this out there too, because you've mentioned this to me before, that you're trying to build a team, a team of people around you, because it can be a lonely ride, and it can take its toll on you, and you've felt it and experienced it. So you're looking for a team to be able to not just yes, you're going to need volunteers, you're going to need money and supplies and all this, but you really want folks who are bought into the mission and are going to want to stand alongside of you shoulder to shoulder, because this is not going to happen if it's just dependent on you. You need 100%. Other people to come alongside of you, right?
Yes. Yeah, we do. We are searching for people that would come in and help us in a communications role, more of like a, not communications, operations role, which would help us connect with foundations, donors, businesses, and then get our word out there, right? Get our messaging out there. We have been blessed to have some wonderful people come and go over time, but we're looking for a consistent group, as well as some teachers. If you know teachers that are looking, that want to be invested in this process, we will start our hiring process for teachers in the late winter. So we're looking at January, February, we'll start that hiring process. And so those that would be interested, please reach out. Would love to have a conversation and explain. It'll be a small staff, small school, but big impact. And that's the cool piece about it.
Yeah, I'll bet that sounds super appealing to a lot of people.
I'm sure it does. We're keeping it small intentionally. Yeah. We want to make sure that the community knows that we're intentional with the students. We're not just here to take as many as possible. We're here to build the students that God has given us, and what that looks like. So we are a private school. So the students apply for the school. Families are involved in the educational process. There's steps to it, but in that, those students will get to travel the world, and those teachers will get to travel the world, and they'll get to invest in not only the next generation, but the current. And that's the cool piece. Oh,
man. Praise God. Matt, I'm so grateful for you, man. Thank you for this time. Man, if you're a listener and you're feeling this, your heart is being pricked, man, reach out. Trust me, Matt he is an incredible person to be able to walk alongside and to be able to invest in and join in this mission. I know you will have an incredible experience. So if God's pricking your heart, man, take that step, reach out, email him, reach out to Matt. Matt, thank you so much for being with us today.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike.
Let's get to work.